to make a bris down there. That's for sure.
Oh yes, it did. Cost somebody.
Oh, Hashem.
The broadcasting is on.
There you go.
Is today's share being sponsored by Agudah?
Agudah sponsored it yesterday. It took one day. Duvi, really our week starts Friday, but he wanted to start it from Friday afternoon, but we should start it today. And Duvi, you want to say let me find it here.
It's Leland. You want to say it?
No, go ahead.
It's my brother's yahrzeit is next week. Chaim Baruch Ben Ruvain.
Remember, it's the broadcast, the sounds, right? And your brother had beautiful sounds, beautiful voice.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, Yossi, just a point of fact. In the United States, in New York City, you cannot have any worship outside even. Churches are also banned from worshiping even outside in New York.
How much is the maximum?
That's another story.
How much is what's happening is the police are officially turning a blind eye. The police are officially going to people and telling them you could open up and do it quietly. Even in New Jersey, the governor doesn't allow it, but the police force is specifically allowing it. Because they're not complying with the governor's orders. There's a lot of backlash against them.
James texted me back, James Pasternak, and said that rumor in Clanton Park, he didn't hear anything about them getting a ticket. I know you said you heard it from somebody that they did.
Yeah.
What's about the million on Duddy Street? Didn't that one get 3 tickets?
No.
What?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay. I'll go back to the person who told me that there were 3 tickets. There were 13 people there, and they got 3 tickets. The 3 and the owner of the house got a ticket.
You're talking about next door.
Yeah. Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, well, it happened yesterday? Could very well be.
That's what I was told.
Could very well be. I
was surprised. Well, you didn't see the text I sent you?
Nope.
Goodness, guys.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard to book Roman Baber for Monday. Yes, so you want to put pressure on him? Or do you want to ask him, how come we're not putting pressure? How come the Jewish community?
No, I want to tell him we want to meet him. We want to meet him in our shul parking lot.
Meet us in the back alley of the parking lot. Right.
Yeah, tell him to meet us out the back.
Yeah, well, he's from Russia. He's used to that.
I think we should all understand that this is a very temporary thing. And as you know how useless and inefficient governments are in general, and then multiply that by 10 because we're in Canada, and there's no way that they're able to even come up with something that is going to be acceptable to put down in writing. You know, when the government puts something down in writing, they need to, you know, this is so fluid, this situation. Look, you like what Victor said, what happened in Israel. You know, I don't know. I think it's a very dangerous time that we're in. And this is not the time for us to go looking to governments to go and help us out. It's for us to help ourselves out. It's for us to rectify our situations. And if we're able to go to the backyard and have 5 people exactly, then that's the way to do it. And you and I and everybody on this call-in or this here knows that everybody's going to backyards and it's not being done properly. Because I've been to backyard meetings.
I'm only at one backyard meeting and it's done properly. I'm only at one backyard meeting and it's done properly.
My backyard minion is very exact. In fact, they're even more machmir than the law.
I have to tell you, I won't say there was a wedding yesterday, and it's nearly impossible. I don't know. This backyard was not a backyard; it was a national park, in some definitions, and it's very hard. I'm telling you, Yossi, to make a wedding and not have social distancing, it was
your wedding was perfect.
Our wedding.
Impossible. Kiva's wedding
your wedding was perfect.
Why?
It was perfect Lubavitch style.
And it was Lubavitch style. It was not social distancing. It was all family, but close family, but it wasn't. Weddings are really hard, harder than shul. Shul is one thing, davening in and out, but weddings, Yossi, I don't know how you can do it. I'm just going to say Mazel Tov. I'm just coming to say hello. It's not. It's really hard. And it's for a short time, but it's really close. It really is. So, or you just say, listen, I'm doing it. It's a mitzvah. I hope Hashem is going to protect us, and it's in and it's out. But if you start allowing weddings, it's a slippery slope. Slippery slope. Really hard to do. I know that Howard.
So you're saying there should be a moratorium on all Jewish weddings?
I'm not saying, unless you really have a lot of discipline and not be able to do it, Yossi, but I can't see how you would have a backyard.
Right, so you're saying there should be a moratorium on all Jewish weddings?
I think so.
No,
I think
there is a
weddings-
Yossi, but obviously by your statement, how the wedding is costing you so much money, that this is not being done in a way that is really as safe as it should be done, unfortunately, because this is how we are Jews. We can't just sit still. It's it's first the house has to be 4,000 square feet, then 6,000 square feet, then 3 cars.
Boy.
And the same thing with the weddings. It's the same thing with the weddings. I saw it by Kiva's wedding. They had a guy slicing meat, for God's sakes. I mean, you're the height of the pandemic practically, and there's some guy slicing meat. There was absolutely no, barely any controls put into place. And you're not going to stand up. Who's going to stand up in the middle of the wedding and say something? Nobody. And look, obviously, this is how it works. This is how we work. This is human nature, and multiplied by 100 probably, because of the situation we're in. And it's our time to keep our heads down and work on our insides and listen to Kiva's Tanya.
That's a plug. Whoa.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Shkoyach, David.
Shkoyach.
I liked everything you said till the end.
It's a style. You didn't like the style shows.
That's right.
Okay, Zak the Heilige Mishnah.
Hey, we have to move.
Yeah. Hamatzniya. So we learned that in order for something to be chatos, if you're mochi mishus shus, is it has to, if it's food, it has to be shir groigris. If it's not food, it has to have some type of critical value. But we also learned that if you do things differently than others and you're master of something that others aren't, that will give, for you at least, it will give it a chashivas. So matzniya lizera, if someone put something away for a plant, so he put away, let's say, even one seed, dugma, to use as a specimen, as a sample, or refuah. Now this isn't talking about the refuah that we learned until now, that if everybody uses for refuah, it's a davar choshev. This is talking about a regular food that you, for some reason, believe that you can use it for refuah. And v'yitzoi b'Shabbos, and you took it out from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabbi on Shabbos, chayiv b'holshu. Then you'll be chayiv even with one teed, even with a tiny bit, because you gave it a chashivas. B'chol adam ein chayiv alav ela k'shiurei. But anybody else who carries it will only be muchayiv if they carry out the shear, based on how the Mishnayos earlier specified that. But the person himself who gave a greater chashivas to a smaller amount, that would still be chashiv. Now, what happens, Rashi says, someone who did value one seed, even though one seed normally is not kosher, you valued it and you took it out. And then, and then after it was already in Rishus HaRabim, you decided that you don't want to use it to plant with anymore, and therefore it lost its chashivas until you have the shear of a gregoris, and you brought it back in, there in the because you changed your mind. It made it lose its chashivas. Once the person changes his mind and now doesn't give this object a special status, bitel machshavah. It's mevatel his original machshava, because he specifically expressed, and this is only if he specifically expresses that he no longer wants to give it a special status, and then he's like anyone else, and therefore the shiurim that have been prescribed in the earlier Mishnayos are those that are applicable. Fragte Gemara, why did the Mishnah have to speak out that you specifically put it away? Listni hamoitzi lazera uludugma or l'refuah chayiv b'chol shu. Let's just say that he took it out, but the fact that he carries it, it shows its cheshivas. So Rashi makes this shaila very clear. Even if he didn't originally put it away special for this special purpose to give it extra cheshivas, rather he took it out. So Rashi, the hada be'inin shiura, that we need the shiurim hanatayim kedarman shein adam terech lahotzi nima achas l'zriya. We learned in the previous parak several times that really one plant alone has a cheshivas. It's just that no one is going to be matriach himself to engage in planting for one seed only. But this guy actually did. So since we know that planting is choshev, and the only reason why it didn't have its cheshivas, the reason why we weren't chayiv with more than several seeds is because we know no one's going to bother doing it. But here he went to do that. Hilchach moitzi stam potter achi heboy shir. That's by a normal case. Here he took it out to plant because it says a motznil. Instead of saying a matznil is there, it could have said a moitzi is there. He's taking it out to plant. So even though he didn't designate this seed to plant with before, but right now as he's taking it, he's showing that he wants to plant it. Well, then behedya galidati the tarach, he's clearly showing that he is willing. To him, it is important to take one seed out and to go plant it. But actually, that gives it significance. So why was it necessary that he designated it even before he took it out as something that he would plant, even one by itself? The fact that he took it should be enough. Listening to Moichi Lazar Ludugmul Refuah Chai B'Choshu, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetzky Kigoin Shetznioi V'Shochach Lo Metznioi. This was a guy who was really on the ball. He had put it away, and he had put it away in the past for the purposes of planting, even though somebody else, an average person, wouldn't be machshav of such a small amount. He did. And then he forgot, and he sees a seed lying around, and he doesn't even remember why he has it lying around.
Same guy who got lost and didn't know where he was. Again, we had the same guy come up again and again in this Gemara.
He forgot it was Shabbos, he forgot it was, it's right, same guy. Now he's just carrying it out without expressing what his intention is. So Ma'u you might say, Bitule Botla Machshavta, his machshava that he originally, not today when he was carrying it, but his original intention when he set this aside for Zriya is bottle, and therefore he's like anybody else, and that he was mochi, this individual seed would not be mechayv mechatos. Kamash malon kol oisa al das v'shoyna oisa. Anyone who does something does it according to his original das. Now this concept of kol oisa al das v'shoyna oisa is actually negei halacha l'maisa. When we make tzitzis, we're supposed to do it l'shem mitzvahs tzitzis. When we paint our tefillin or do anything with our tefillin, write our tefillin, we have to write l'shem mitzvahs tefillin. Now, what happens if you say before you start painting your tzuos, for instance, you say l'shem mitzvahs tefillin, and then you get spaced out and you get engaged in conversation with somebody and you don't have that kavanah. The halacha is, since originally you expressed your intention that it's l'shem mitzvahs tefillin, or when you first started doing your tzitzis, you said l'shem mitzvahs tzitzis, even if you got spaced out later, we say kol oisa al dash v'shoyna oisa.
Yossi, then how can he bring it back in?
Because he explicitly expressed that he's changing his mind. In other words, stoma, you say if someone does something, it's not das v'shoyna. But if someone expresses that he changes his mind, of course that would break it. So they say over Vertel that most people are busy a whole day with pranosa. They can't be involved in doing Torah and mitzvahs and learning a whole day because they're busy. They have a life. They have things that they have responsibilities. But if you start off early in the morning and you start your day with Torah, then kol oisa al das v'shoyna oisa. No matter what you do a whole day, it's all al das the Torah. It's all das. It's all the same. It's a continuation of the same thing.
I feel so much better. Oh, it just took away all my guilt.
Which not so you shouldn't have guilt. It's a mitzvah. If you're being oisik for us, it's a mitzvah. Amar Reb Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Machayev Hayer Reb Meir, who's the Tana of our Mishnah, because we have a halacha that's Stam Mishnah Reb Meir. Machayev Hayer Reb Meir af b'moitzi chita achas l'zriya. Even if he takes out one seed. Frek the Gemara Pshita Kol Shutan. The Mishnah says pretty explicitly Kol Shut. So what is what is Rabbi Yehuda bringing here? What chiddush is he bringing here? So tomorrow, you might think kol shu. That the Mishnah says kol shu. It doesn't mamish mean kol shu. It means that food can be groigris. It just means that you don't need a regular share of food, which is a groigris, but oilam adik kazayis. But you really need the kazayis. Kamash Malon, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel is trying to clarify the Mishnah that when the Mishnah says kol shu, it literally means kol shu. Maskav lo Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yehuda. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yehuda has a kasha. Now there's a shayla between Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi loses the kasha back on the Abaye's pshat of kol oisa al das v'shoydehu oisa, which was Abaye's pshat in the Mishnah, and Tosfos learns the kasha is on what Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel said in the name of Rav Meir, and this is the kasha. Maskav lo Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yehuda. Elameata. Now that you're saying that it's totally in the das of a person, it's totally in the das of a person. Are you suggesting that chishev lahoitzi kol beisai, if his intention was to take everything out, to take everything in this house out, and he didn't, he only took out a little object. Are you saying hachanami the loy mechayiv ad the mapel l'chulei? So are you saying if someone carries out a food like a groigris, but his intention was that he wanted to take everything out, and now he didn't, so are you saying he's not mechuyev? Because now that you're saying that everything depends on machshava, so you said it l'chumra, but maybe it should apply l'kula as well, because you're saying that Shabbos is special, that it's totally his machshava to be mechayivim. So his machshava was to take out the whole house, and he didn't. So maybe she potter. So tomorrow, no. Hasam batla daitai eitel kaladim. There, his das is bottle. So in our Mishnah, you say that. In our Mishnah, you say his das counts because he was much of a smaller thing, but chishav lahitza kol beisai will say it's bottle daitoi eitel kaladim. So Rashi bottle daitoi the shiur the choshev leinchi choshev. Whatever is a normal shir that a person would bring out. So not every person is going to bring his whole house out. A normal shir that a person would carry, that has a chashivas, and that's why even if he took out just a shir, it's going to be asher, even though his intention was to take out everything. There you say batal daitoi. However, something that is somewhat reasonable, like someone giving a chashivas to one seed over a larger amount, there you don't say batal daitoi, and there his machshava will create a chiyuv.
So we say it basically always goes l'chumra by Yochatzah here.
It doesn't say only l'chumra. It says that any machshava is valid provided that you don't say batal daitoi. So I guess it's when you say a guy was only machshav carrying out his whole house, that's out of the normal realm. That's out of the
but if let's say
realm.
he has if he's machshav one seat and nobody else is machshav that seat.
There you don't say batal daitoi because I guess there are people. It's not so rare that someone should be machshav one seat, but for someone only to consider it haitzah by taking everything out of his house, that's so far removed from normalcy. You say batal daitoi.
It's possible. It's so as the Rai says. So we do lean towards chumrah. I mean, it does make sense.
But the Gemara's teretz is not that it's chumrah. The Gemara is not saying you go to chumrah. The Gemara is saying that if there are certain people, if the gauge is all the way up but it's not in the red, there you don't say batal daitoi. When your gauge is all the way in the red, then you say batal daitoi. Because when you're doing something that departs so far from what's normal, that's when you say batal daitoi. That's why I understood it. I didn't see the article on it, but that's why I understood it. Because did it make sense? Zok the hele Gemara. The Gemara says as follows. The Mishnah says, Adam ein chayav nalav ela kishirei. Now, if you remember, when we learned these Mishnayos, we actually had a bar plukta on this. We had a bar plukta who held that if I am machshiv this, and someone comes into my house and takes this out from my house, then he would also be chayiv. Because once I'm machshiv, this is now considered an object for anybody. Now, if he takes his own thing out of his own house, that year, of course, he won't be chayiv. But since I specifically gave this thing in my house for chashivas, anybody who now will take it will be chayiv. And that was the shita of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. So Zok Gemara, Masnisin the Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Our Mishnah is inconsistent with Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The Tanya, Klal Omer Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Kol she'enei kosher latzniya, ve'ein matniyin kamayu. Something that nobody puts it away in that small shear, but the hochshu was that. But Reuven felt, I want to be machshav even one seed. And he put it away and he saved it. Uva Acher, and Shimon came into Reuven's house and he took Reuven's seed. The hoitzi, and he took it out. Nischayiv zeh, Shimon will be chayiv the machshava sheshel zeh. Since Reuven gave this seed and it's his own seed, he gave it a chashivas. Now anybody who carries it out, including Shimon, will be chayiv a chatos for carrying it out. And this is where the same Reb Shimon ben Elazar we learned in the earlier Mishnayos. Omar Rava.
Sorry, wasn't Roshan ben Elazar held that the guy who's mafsha something so small, he carried it himself, and then the other person, he gave it over to the other person in Rosh Hashanah?
No, I have something in my house that most people wouldn't be mafsha, like one seed, and I'm mafsha it, I'm planning to plant it, and it's in my house. And then Shimon comes, I give him permission, Shimon comes, and he carries it out. So I didn't carry it anywhere, but I was just saving it. I was putting it away because to me it was very important to save because I was planning to plant it. Or any item that I was machshiv smaller than the normal shear. I believe the Mishnah of Reb Shimon ben Elazar was actually talking about building materials, how big a beam you would use. But it's something that the normal people don't give it a chshivas. But to me, this was choshev, and I put it away for myself.
That even if the other guy didn't know he was machshav it?
I believe so. I believe so, because my das determines my objects. So because my das makes it choshev, see, you're asking even if he didn't know, even if he disagreed and he held there was not a davar choshev, so not only if he was just not paying attention, even if he paid attention, Shimon, and said, no, this is not choshev, it's still choshev because the owner of the object gave it chashivas. And that's just the shita of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. The main Mishnah that we learned earlier argued on this. So now Rava says in the name of Reb Nachman, you carried out food, and there was the sheer groigers. This is a textbook case of Oitzah when it comes to food. So what happened was he made the akira, and while he made the akira, he was planning to eat it. So now it's a textbook case of carrying food outside. But then before he put it down in the Rishus HaRabim, he changed his mind. Now he was planning to use this to plant. Now, to plant, we already said, is even a smaller shir than a groivus, because even 2 seeds in certain cases, we had 5 seeds, and for certain meaning those 2 seeds. So for sure, I should be chayiv. But I still changed the purpose of why I'm carrying this out. So v'nimlach al lizriya, or inami, or let's say lizriya, I carried out, I made an akira in Rishus HaYochid with a groigus worth of seeds with the intention of planting them, v'nimlach aleha la'achila, and then before I settled them in Rishus HaRabim, before the anocha, I changed my mind and I was going to be planning to eat it. Chayiv am chayiv. Zok l'mar pshita. What's the chiddush? Zil hacha ikeshira. Whether your intention is to do an achila, there's enough seeds here to make a shir groigus, so there would be a chiyuv for that. Zil hacha ikeshira. And if you want to be mechayiv him for taking out something that you would plant with, then for sure you have a shir. You have a shir plus. So what is the chiddush that person would be chayiv? Zok Gemara, ma'u detema. I would think, ba'inon akira v'hanocha b'chad machshava v'aleka. You might have thought that you need to have the same machshava throughout. Melechas machshava sashatayra, and therefore you need one machshava to carry through both for the akira and for the anocha. Kamashmalan, that no, since zilhacha ikeshura, the entire malacha was done with chiyuv. Therefore, the person has chayiv chatas. So, boy, Rava, let's clear now a bigger chiddush. Hoitzi chatzi groigros lizriya. He originally only took a half a groigros. Now, a half a groigros, if his intention was to eat it, there would be no chayiv over here. It has to be a sheer groigros. But he was carrying it out with the intention of planting it. So Lagabe planting, even a half a grogus would be enough. Only a few seeds are enough. And then what happened is with Tipcha. Before he made Anocha, it swelled up. Maybe it absorbed moisture, it was very humid, and the seeds swelled up. And now they're the shear of a grogus. V'nimlach alel achila. And he changed his mind and now he wants to eat it before he made Anocha. Mahu, what would halacha be? Imtim talomer hasam, in the case where it was a grogus at the beginning and a grogus at the end, and you just change your mind between wanting to eat it or wanting to plant it. So hasam hudu mechayiv, the zilhacha ikishira, the object that he carried was always a shear, no matter what his intention was. He always had a shear for any type of intention. But hacha, even the apka, when he made his akira, it was not yet a grogus. It was only a half a grogus. Loy have a bay shear achila. There was no shear for achila. So had the machshava been for achila at the time of the akira, this would not have generated a chiyuv carbon chatas. So therefore, loy mechayiv. Maybe the person should not be chayiv for carbon chatas. Zokt Rashi, why? To have a shas hanocha leka shear lemachshava kamaisa. Because at the time of the nocha, when he intended to eat it, the original shear would not have been sufficient to be mechayiv him for a dover of Michael. Or maybe say, even the ilu ishtik, had he not changed his machshava, had he just remained with his initial machshava, mechayiv a machshava disriya, he would have been chayiv even though it's a half a grogus, but the machshava of Zriya, which was his original intention, would have made him chayiv. So hashtanami mechayiv say that he's chayiv as well. And again, Rashi adds some flavor. The fact is, the machshava achroina, meaning the hanocha, was done with a shear of chiyuv, because even though his intention was to eat it at that point, but at that point it was already a shear groigris, because it had already swelled up. And the shear with which he's chayiv while he's doing the hanocha would definitely suffice to be a shear for Zriya. So therefore it should be chayiv. Now, if you want to say, therefore hashta nami mechayiv, so if you're going to be mechayiv here, because you'll say that the situation now where he's making the halacha, it's swollen, that would have been mechayiv him both for this Zriya, which was his original machshava, and the achila, which is his machshava now. What would be even in a greater chiddush? He originally took out a sheer groigus and his intention was to eat it. So the akira was done 100% to be mechayiv mechatas. But for tzomka, these seeds that he carried out shrunk, they dried out before he made anacha. And then, before he made anacha, the nimlach alel Zriya. He decided that he wants to do Zriya. So technically the anacha, if you look at it by itself, would be enough to be mechayiv. What would be the halacha? Hacha vadai ki ishtik hamachshava kamai shaloi mechayiv. Had he not changed courses, he would not have been mechayiv, because his original machshava was for achila, and now when he's making the hanocha, this mass of seeds has already shrunk, and there aren't enough seeds to be mechayiv for hanocha for a davar Michael. Maybe you only look at each individual component of the malacha by itself. The akira was done in the matzav of Isser. You had kavanah to achila and you had a shir gregus. And the hanocha was done in the matzav of Isser, because you had a hanocha of a shir that's enough for Zriya, and that was your kavanah. So therefore it should be mechayiv. And if you want to say that indeed you just look at each individual component and make sure that each individual component at its time had all the ingredients to create chiyuv, what would be if hoitzika groigris lachila? You took out a sheer groigris lachila, v'tzomka, and it dried up, and v'chazer v'tapka, and then it once again swelled up. So what happens is, since you always wanted to do it lachila, you never wanted to do it l'zriya. When you originally made the akira, you had a shir groigris. When you made the anacha, you had your shir groigris, but somewhere in between, you did not have a shir groigris. So do you say mao? Do you say yesh dichoy in Shabbos or ein dichoy in Shabbos? Now the concept of dichoy is discussed by karbonis. If a carbon in the middle gets some type of mum or gets some type of psul, even though that psul corrects itself, once the carbon was in a point where it wasn't roy for a carbon, it loses its status of a carbon permanently. So maybe we should apply that chiddush to Shabbos as well. Since at one point during the malacha, things didn't go right, so maybe now it derails this whole action, akira nacha action, it derails us from chiyuv. So do you say that? Or maybe you don't say that. You look at each component individually. The akira was done with a textbook case of Isser, and the hanacha was done as a textbook case. Maybe it would be chayiv, it's up to more teku. So let's see how Rashi describes dichui legabe Shabbos. Mashachosher b'ntayim. Since in the middle between the akira and the hanacha, there was a point where they shriveled up, and you didn't have a critical mass to be mechuyev achatos for the Yitzah. Ilu ancha v'hi shaita loy mechayiv. Had he made the hanacha instantly right then when it was shrunken, you would not have been chayiv. So miyam reading Torah's dichui the nitcha loy mechiv chatos. Do you say once at one point in the malacha this item was removed from the chiyuv chatos, and you say you bought the law akira, and it interrupts the whole malacha, and now you got to start over again, and the akira that you started with will no longer be valid. You lost your akira because you have to do the malacha from beginning to end in one matzah of chiyuv. That's what you're obliged to take.
Yossi, just wanted to clarify, I'm forgetting. So in order to be chayav, you have to do both hakira and anacha?
Yes.
So hypothetically, if you took something out and you kept walking forever, or you never put it down until after Shabbos, so you're not chayav?
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you hold like Ben Azai, who holds every step is considered the hanacha. Every step is the akira hanacha. But we who pass but we hold, if you kept on walking, that's why if you walk.
So this isn't a shayla, then according to Ben Azai, this isn't the shayla.
That's right. It will not be relevant according to Ben Azai.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you found yourself that you had something in your pocket that was a davar chashuv, you found a groigris of food. If you found the groigris of food that was in your pocket that you made it a cure, you should not make a hanacha b'shus rabim. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to find a makom b'tur. A makom b'tur is something that's a couple of tefachim high. I think it's like 9 tefachim high. So, it's less than 9 tefachim high. It's something that people from the Rishus Rabbim wouldn't be able to use. It's less than dalet al dalet, so it won't be a Rishus Hayachid, like a fire hydrant. And the right thing to do would be to drop off whatever you have in your pocket at a fire hydrant. So there, although you made the akira, the hanacha was done into a makom b'tur, and that would get you out of the problem.
Right. Okay. Sure.
So the word dichui literally means to push something away. So do you say once something is pushed away from its status, so you had a groigris of food, it was in the zone, it had a status of an item that you could be mechuyev for hitzah, but in the middle, it lost that status. So it was pushed away. It was pushed away from its status of being an amount that would generate the Isra hitzah. Do you say once it's pushed away, you have to do the whole malacha without any interruption? And since in the middle there was an interruption, the object you're carrying was pushed away from its status of being mechuyev, do you say that dichui is permanent and you have to start over again? Or do you say that dichui is temporary, and if it once again swells for the hanacha, and you can make the hanacha and a matzah of Isser, we don't care what happened in between the akira and the hanacha, as long as the akira was done in the status of Isser, and the hanacha was done in the status of Isser, that would be enough to create Isser. Or do you say dichui, since in the middle it got pushed away, it eliminates the whole malacha from the beginning, and you have to start over again from scratch with a full shear.
I'm assuming this does nothing like we've had Gemaras before where let's say there's a different rishus in the middle and it changed status. So over there the issue So
you're saying if I took something to rishus from one rishus hayachid to another rishus hayachid, or I took something from rishus hayachid to rishus rabbim through a carmelis.
Right. We had.
So the Gemara is going to discuss that case.
Right. So we had where state changed status, but here maybe the object itself. There, the object was the same object. Here, right.
The circumstances. My hanacha might not be a hanacha, but the object is still an object that always remained in the status of chiyuv.
Sorry, yes. So what was the maskana on the previous case where it changed from achila to planting? It was only valid for at the time.
So
What was the maskana?
whenever the Rambam usually passes, whenever there's a ve'imtim shalomer, that usually means that the Rambam will paskin that way. So we paskin the intim shalomer basar hashtaz linon. So halacha l'maisa, the Rambam paskins that as long as the akira was done in an isser and the hanacha is done in an isser, it doesn't matter if the akira was a shir groigus and I had kavanah for achila, and the hanacha was less than a shir groigus and I had kavanah for zriya. We paskin that would be chayiv, because the intim shalomer is how we usually follow. The last shaila didn't have an intim shalomer, and it remains with the tekel. Boy minei Rava Merav Nachman. Today's a good day for Rava. He keeps coming up with good questions to ask his Rabbi Rav Nachman. Zorak Kizai. This is an even more remote question. Zorak Kizayis Truma Labayis Tomei into a Tomei house. This reminds me, Rav is like keeps on pushing the envelope, asking Rav Nachman shilas that are more and more remote. I remember I used to often drive my Rosh Hashiva to New York if he had to go to New York for a meeting or whatever. So I didn't want it to be a waste of time. So what I would always do is before I would drive my Rosh Hashiva to New York, I would prepare a whole bunch of shilas on the sugya so that anything that I didn't have clear, I'd be able to ask him. So I'm driving with him. It was Reb Yosy Kamenetzky, and I'm asking a question, and he answers me another question. It's going on. It's like 20 minutes, a half hour. I'm asking question after question. I'm peppering him with questions. And finally, he says, "Where are you getting all these questions from?" I said, "I have notes." He says, "Really? Let me see your notes." He takes my notes. He opens the window, chucks them out the window. Now you can drive. So Reb Nachman's about to do that. Zor Kazai's truma l'bayis told me he threw it away. Zor Kazai's truma. He threw a kazayis of truma l'bayis tomei into a tomei house. Now, what's the halacha? So we don't even know Lagabi what's the shaila. Lamai, what is your shaila? Ila inin Shabbos. If your question is, are you mechuyev al Shabbos because you threw something from Rishus Harabim into a bayis tomei? Well, kegregris binim. We need the gregris. What's the and tum is not relevant here. We know to be mechuyev for transporting a Michael from one rishus to another rishus, it has to be a gregris, and you're talking about a kazai. It's not nearly enough. Ilin tuma, and if your shaila is whether or not there's tuma, and that's a big shaila in and of itself, what that means, kebetza oichlin beinam, tumas oichlin, an oichel that's makabel tuma, and that can contribute tuma, needs to be shir kebetza. Now this is a subject of a dispute throughout Shas. Rashi learns that even if something is less than a shir kebetza, it could become tummy. If a shir touches it, it will become tummy, but it will not be able to be metame something else. Tosfos learns, and Tosfos says it in a lot of words, all the way over here. Tosfos says that it won't even become tummy midaraisa. It will not even be a tummy midaraisa at all. If you have a food product that's less than a kebetza, even if a shir touches it, midaraisa won't be tummy at all. So going back to Rav's question, you're talking about throwing a piece of food that's only a kazayis. So of course it wouldn't have tumah. So what is your shayla? Lagabe Shabbos you need a gregris, lagabe tumah need kebetza, and you're talking about a kazayis. So it's totally irrelevant. So tomorrow la'olam l'inyan Shabbos. The question that Rava was asking was, would there be a chi of Shabbos? So why in the world should a kazayis be enough? The teretz is because you see here the Torah gave it a chashivas. Where do you see here the Torah gave it a chashivas? What happened here is there was already a half a kibetza of oichlin in that house that was tummy. Now it's not going to be makabel tumah because it's not a shir kibetza, or it cannot be. That's Tosfos. According to Rashi, it cannot be metame something else because it's not a shir kibetza. The high mashmila kibetza. So, for instance, we had some type of we had chont. That's first. We had a little bit of chont, but it wasn't a shir kibetza. And I throw a blob of chont in. That's a kazayis. And when it lands on the other blob of chont, now you have a full kibetza of chont. So now there'll be tuma there. So we say that it has a very big significance. This blob, this kazayis of chont that I threw onto that pile has great significance. It changes the status of this item from non-tuma to tuma. So Clearly, the Torah gives great significance to this little bit that I threw in. So what do we say? Since there's a great significance in this little thing that I threw, it changes the status of this glob. So therefore, mechayiv nami linyan Shabbos, that in and of itself should give it a cheshivas and say that the inyan Shabbos yechayiv. Oidilma, no. Kol the inyan Shabbos kegregis binyan. We have a shir gregis. We don't care what happens lagabi other halachas. When it comes to Shabbos, it has to be a shir gregis. So that's how Rashi explains it. Midachoshav hach srika le'inyan tuma. Since the srika has a great significance, it changes the status of an item from tahar to tamid. So therefore, that in and of itself should give it a chashivas choshav nami le'inyan Shabbos ki iluhu kegregis, just as if it was a gregis u'mechayiv oiloi, or do you say no? Amar lei. So Reb Nachman said, good question, but we actually have, believe it or not, we have a brisa that discusses not your question per se, but something that will give us an understanding of how to approach your question. Abba Shaul, who's the Tana, said, Shtei alechem, v'lechem apanim. Shtei alechem was the breads that were brought on Shavuos. Lechem apanim were the breads that were brought every week. They were on the shulchan. Shiuram kegroigros. Their shear is a groigros. That the shear that we're talking about is if you eat it out of the zone, that you're mechuyev for eating it outside. Rashi and Amar Beis will explain. Why is that? Why is the shear kegregis? Lema, I'm sorry, I apologize. Shiurin legabe heitzar reshus l'shus. If you wanted to carry them, if you carried them from a shus hayachid to a shus harabim, it would have to be a shear gregis. And the Gemara asks, Vamai, Lema midele inyan yoytze, since legabe getting malchus for eating either the shtei alechem or the lechem aponim out of the proper boundaries, out of the Beis Hamikdash, be the inyan yoytze bekazayis. If you only eat a kazayis, if you're only eating a kazayis of either lechem aponim or shtei alechem out of the asara, out of where you're allowed to eat it, you'll be chayiv. So you see the Torah lent a halachic cheshivas to even a kazayis of lechem aponim and to even a kazayis of shtei alechem. So therefore, le'inyan Shabbos nami b'chazayis. So by your reasoning, Rava, Reb Nachman telling Rava, by your reasoning that since it was mashlim l'shir tumah, so that since it has a halachic cheshivas, that will also give it a status of cheshivas to be mechayiv you when you're moichet meshus shus. Why would we not say the same thing in Abba Shaul's case of lechem aponim and shtei alechem? There we know they have a halachic cheshivas of even the kazayis, lagabe eating it out of the azara. So too, lagabe carrying it from shus hayachid to shus harabim, a kazayis should be enough. And you don't say that. So that would be proof, Stok Reb Nachman, that we don't care that lagabe tumah, it was mashlim the kabetza, and because of that, this kazayis has a cheshivas. We don't say that. Since by Shabbos the rule is kegregis, that's the rule. And if there's no gregis, if it's only kazayis that you threw mishus l'shus, there would be no chiyuv. I don't think you have a good raya. Reb Nachman said to Rava, Rava said to Reb Nachman, I don't think you have a good raya from Abba Shaul. Hosam, over there in Abba Shaul's case, the problems are not occurring simultaneously. The Iser Yitzia, it becomes possible. It's not talking about, so it's not talking about the malchus of eating it. It's talking about it becomes possible to eat because it left the Azara. And then if you eat it after it became possible for leaving the Azara, you chayiv malchus. So there, when did it become possible? It became possible the moment it left the walls of the Azara. But guess what? Right outside the walls of the Azara is not yet a Rosh Hashanah. The Rosh Hashanah is way out towards the outer outskirts of Har Bayis. So therefore, a Shabbos loy mechayiv, the chiv haitzah does not occur ad matbek leiler Rosh Hashanah till you take it way further out. Rashi says, well, the chot l'chaim is lahek of achel shalafnei es noshim or es noshim shu b'chel, but the Rosh Hashanah is much further out. So at one point, you're over, and the shtei alechem or the lechem aponim becomes possible, should I say, but it doesn't cross the border into Rosh Hashanah much later. So it's not occurring at the same time. But in my Shaila Zokrava, Shabbos v'tumah b'adad adikasya. They're both, the status are both coming at the same time as it crosses from the Rosh Hashanah into the Rosh Hashanah, they're happening at the same time. And Rashi tells us, what do you mean they're happening at the same time? As soon as it crosses into Rosh Hashanah, into Rosh Hashanah or into Rosh Hashanah, as soon as it crosses into the house, it's in the house already. So Rashi says that at the asnach in its starf in Mashar, lo have a beshir. So when does this Michael become a shir kabeya? When the kazayis of chon plops on it and it lands. At that moment when it lands is also when they have the anocha to finish the maisa of Haitzah. So since they're happening exactly at the same time, that's where Rabbi says I want to suggest that since there's a chashivus of this landing, Lagabe Tumah, there should also be a chashivus of this, Lagabe Shabbos. But your case, where you're trying to be derived from, is not relevant to what I'm talking about. Because in your case, at one point, as soon as it leaves the Azara, there it's already puzzle because of Yotzei. And sure, if exactly at that moment I was also making a Hanach and Rosh Hashanah, I might have the same Shaila. But in that case, the Hanach and Rosh Hashanah doesn't happen until much later. And therefore, since they're totally dislodged, disconnected from each other, there, of course, the significance of Kazayis isn't relevant to Haitzah or Shabbos. But in my Shaila Zokrava, it is relevant. And the Gemara does not have a teretz to that Shaila. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Chazor v'chnisai. We said that if he changed his mind, when he took something out of the Rosh Hashanah into Rosh Hashanah, at that point his intention was that he was going to plant it and give it a chashivas. But then he changed his mind in Rosh Hashanah and he brought it back in. There you're not chayiv for that because you didn't bring a shir groigers. So therefore, any chayiv ela keshiyurei only if it's the right shir. So tomorrow pshita, of course, it doesn't have the status anymore of a dover choshev. Amar Abaye hacha b'maya skina, koloin shezarkoi la'oitzer, u'mekayme nicker. He threw it la'oitzer, and its place is nicker. Zok to Gemara, ma'u detema, kiven the mekayme nicker b'milsa kamaisakoi, kamashim lo midizarkoi la'oitzer b'tuli batle. I must have fell asleep while I was preparing this shtickle Gemara because I don't remember this Gemara. So let me see what Rashi says. Amar Abaye. Tell you Rashi. Pshita, kiven de loizare. Since I ended up not planting it and I changed my mind from planting it, so bringing it in, it's botlim and machshava kamaisa, favlik kachalodam. So bringing it back in shouldn't be chayiv. Amar Abaye masnisin b'shaloi nimlachalov b'ferish. Oh, our mission is not speaking where I explicitly stated while it was outside, I no longer want to use it to plant. I no longer am machshav this small amount. Without thinking, I just threw it for the Shusharabim back into my pile of pears. V'zeu bittul machshava. And the chiddush of the Mishnah is even that not thought about, just a haphazard throw of this zera back into the pile. Since I didn't bring it in and put it into a special place, rather I treated it like other pears. Therefore, you need it going to Mekoyme Nicker. You need the Mishnah needs to tell us this halacha. Going to Mekoyme Nicker, meaning I threw it back on the pile, but it didn't get mixed in with the rest of the pile. The original seed that I originally had intended to plant it's back on the pile, but I see exactly where it is. It didn't get mixed into the pile with other pears. It's still distinct. So since you could still see it and still stands out, since I didn't explicitly state I no longer want to plant it, so therefore it still retains its original chashivas, and I would have a chiyuv of the moitzi mishus l'shus of passing it from Rishus Harabim back into the Rishus HaYachid. The mere fact that he threw it without giving it the special care of a special status item, bitula batle, it shows his das is to be mavatal from that chashivas. So Rashi ma'ad v'tei mekivim the mekayim nicker from milsa kamaisakoi ta'avale command the atne luchudei. It's as if I put it away in a special place because its place is still distinct. The mere fact that I threw it without giving it special status, that's mevatal my das, and therefore we treat it like any other pears. And if it's for achila, you need a shir groigers. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Hamoitzi oichlin v'nosan al haskupa. You're taking oichlin, shir groigers, of course, from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRab. But you put it on the eskuba, you put it on the doorstep. The Gemara is going to tell us, Rashi says, that we're speaking about the doorstep of a carmelist. So this was a carmelist. So it's a carmelist midirabanan. It's also to take from a carmelist to a Rishus HaRabim on Shabbos, and it's also to take from a carmelist to a Rishus HaYochid on Shabbos. But it's not their rice, it's only their button. So on Moitze Oichlin, you have a basket of food, in Nostan ala Skupa, and you put it on the actual doorpost, on the floor of the doorpost. Bein Shechazer V'Etzion, if you then continued and picked up the basket and then took it out into Rishus HaRabim proper, Bein Sheitzi Nacher, or if another party came and lifted up that basket and took it outside, Potter, in either case, you're Potter for putting it on the Skupa. Why is that? You made an akira from Rishus HaYochid, a hanacha in the askupa, which is a carmelist, and then you made a new hanacha, a new akira from that carmelist, and you went into the Rishus HaRabim. Those are two derabbanans. Never did you complete a full malacha deraisa at one shot. So therefore, therefore you're not chayiv. What about kupa shimalei pears? Imagine you have a basket that's full of grapes. Grapes aren't such a good example because they're all bound together. Full of nuts. Imagine you have a basket full of walnuts. V'nosna al askupa, and you put it on the doorpost. So this again is a mokum that's not a chiyuv daraisa. V'nosna al askupa hachitzayna. So when you put the basket down on this doorpost, the basket was overhanging into the Rishus HaRabim. So some of your walnuts are in Rishus HaRabim. Some of them are in the carmelist, but they're all contained in one basket. Zok the Mishnah, Afapi sheroiv peris mi b'chutz. Even though most of the pears, even if it was hanging over a lot, and most of the pears were already past that threshold, past the demarcation point, and it's on the Rishus HaRabim side. So on that portion, at least, you took it from a Rishus HaYochid and placed that portion into a Rishus HaRabim. Potter, you still potter. Achiyotzi es kalakupa. The whole basket is united, and unless the whole basket is out into Rishus HaRabim, we say that there's no chiyuv malacha yet. Zok the Heilige Gemara. Haya skupa mai. This askupa that we're talking about, where exactly is this askupa? Ilema askupa Rishus HaRabim. If you're saying that the scoop itself was Rishus HaRabim, Potter, are you suggesting in your Mishnah that you're Potter for putting it on the skupa? Hakamapik Rishus HaYochid Rishus HaRabim. It's a regular textbook case of malacha. You took it out of your Rishus HaYochid, you put it onto your skupa that you're claiming at this point has a status of Rishus HaRabim. Elo, that cannot be pshat in our Mishnah. Rather, a skupa is Rishus HaYochid. The skupa must be Rishus HaYochid. Zok the Gemara. Bein shechazer v'aitzion, bein sheitzion acher Potter. How could you say that? Hakamapik Rishus HaYochid Rishus HaRabim. So you picked it up first from Rishus HaYochid and you put it onto the askupa, which also has a status of Rishus HaYochid. You did nothing at all. But then when you lift it up again from the askupa, which is a status of Rishus HaYochid, and you place it into Rishus HaRabim, that's a textbook case of Oitzah, Rishus L'Shus, that should be chayiv. So how could the Mishnah say it's Potter? Ella askupa carmelis. And this is how we learn pshat in the Mishnah. The askupa is not a Rishus HaYochid. It's not a Rishus HaRabim. Rather, it had a din of a carmelis. So therefore, basically, you took it from Rishus HaYochid to this no man's land, to the carmelis, and then you made an akira from this no man's land, from the carmelis, and you made a noch Rishus HaRabim. Hakamash malon, time of the noch becarmelis. The only reason why we're saying you're potter for this malacha. So again, what did you do? You picked it up from the Rishus HaYochid, you placed it in the carmelis. You picked it up from the carmelis and you placed it in Rishus HaRabim, and you're potter. Why are you potter? The noch becarmelis, because you actually stopped the malacha in the middle by making a hanocha in the carmelis. What if you picked it up and you traveled over the carmelis, which was mechi shaila, and then you put it down into Rishus HaRabim, but you flew over the airspace of the carmelis? Haloi noch the carmelis. If you merely flew over the airspace of the carmelis, but you never parked in the carmelis, mechayiv, you'd be mechuyev. So you see, the fact that you traveled into a mokum petur in between would not ruin the malacha, would not be a mafsik between your akira and your Rishus HaRabim, in your Rishus HaYochid, and your anocha in Rishus HaRabim. This Mishnah clearly is not consistent with Ben Azai's Hashita. The Tanya Hamoitzi Mechanus Laplatya Derech Stav, if you take something, the way they used to have their marketplaces set up, I think of it like in Yorkdale. You have the individual stores, and then there's a lot of benches, sitting areas in the open mall. So the way they had it was in Yorkdale and malls, sometimes in the center of the main walkway, there would be areas to sit that you can't really walk through. But the way they had their malls was the benches to sit were on the edges, right in front of the stores, and the main walkway was in the center of the mall. So here you carried something from a chanus, which is a Rishus HaYachid, Laplatia to the main thoroughfare, which was a Rishus HaRabim, but derech stop, you went through the area where there were benches sitting there, which is a Mokim P'tur, it's like a Carmelis. The halacha is your chayiv. We pass on your chayiv because you didn't stop in the stove. You walk straight through from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim. You just pass through this stove on the way. But Ben Azai Potter, Ben Azai is Potter, and because of Ben Azai Shita of Mahalach Kaimet, he holds every step is an Akira and Anacha. So what happened was you made one step from Rishus HaYachid, from the Chanus, into the stove. You made an Akira in the Rishus HaYachid, and then you made and the fact that you stepped through the stove, now that's considered a Hanacha in a Carmelis, which is not generated Chiv Chatas. Then when you took your next step to go from the stove into the Rishus HaRabim, again, you made an Akira from Mokum Tur, and you made a Hanacha in the Rishus HaRabim. And therefore, when I say Mokum Tur, I don't mean Mokum Tur, I mean Midai Raisa, it's a Mokum Tur. Midai Raisa doesn't have a status of a Rishus HaYachid or a Rishus HaRabim. So Ben Azai holds every step is a new Akira and a new Hanacha, and you'd be Chayiv, but our mission does not hold like that. Our mission holds that the Akira is when you originally pick it up, the Hanacha is when you originally put it down, your footsteps in between do not constitute an Akira or a Hanacha. Zok Tehele Gemara Vayter. Kuba Shimeleya. So let's review this case. You have a basket, it has pears in it, and you take it from a Rishus HaYachid, and you place it onto a skupa, and some of it, even most of it, might be hanging out into the Rishus HaRabim. Is that considered a full Hanacha in Rishus HaRabim to generate a Chiyav Chatas? Omer Chizkiah says, Lo Yishanu ala bekupa meleya kishuin udalun. The type of pears that we're talking about are not walnuts, like I said when I learned the Mishnah, where there's a whole bunch of complete walnuts that are on one side of the basket, which are actually already in Rishus HaRabim, and the other walnuts are on the inside. Rather, we're speaking about cucumbers. So it's one long cucumber filling up the whole length of the basket. And 3/4 of the cucumber might already be in Rishus HaRabim, might be over the edge, but 1/4 of that cucumber is still in Rishus HaYachid, or it's still on the askupa. So the point is that there's no one, you cannot find even one peri in this entire batch that has completely parked in Rishus HaRabim. Every single peri has part in one Rishus and part in the other Rishus. Only there, Zot Chizkiah, do I say that it's going to be potter. Because there's not one object there that's fully disengaged from Rishus HaYachid and now completely in Rishus HaRabim. If it was full of little seeds, then it would be chayiv. You know why? Because sure, the chardal that's on this side of the line didn't cross it, but the chardal that's on the other side of the line, the seeds or the walnuts or whatever it might be, that's now still in the same basket, but it's in the Rishus HaRabim. Those have already parked in Rishus HaRabim, and they have a full chiyuv as hoitzah. They were taken from Rishus HaYachid into Rishus HaRabim.
Yossi, why don't you say over here Kashir Gregoris? Why is it all of a sudden matter that it's connected to a full cucumber? If you have a bite of the cucumber, it's Kashir Gregoris, that's in Rishus HaRabim. Why aren't you chayiv in that amount? You can eat it independently. You don't have to eat the whole cucumber at once.
It's a very good order. So you're saying as long as the sheer Gregoris of this cucumber is over the border, that should create a chiyuv already. Excellent kasha. Let's see Rashi. Rashi explains it beautifully why it wouldn't, you don't look at it that way. So Rashi says, Shuin v'dilun shein aruchin, they're long, v'adayin yesh mehem b'fnim, there's still part of them that are on inside. And Rashi says this chiddush, v'chol ma, the oged legavoy, anything that has some connection at all, still to the inside, koldahu, even if it has a remote connection, even though it itself is Rishus HaRabim, but it has some connection to the the Rishus HaYochid still, lav oitzahi. That doesn't qualify as etzah. It's only etzah if it's completely severed, almost like a get. It has to be completely severed from any connection to the Rishus HaYochid, and it has to be totally in Rishus HaRabim. So even though, in fact, like what you're asking is that there is a shir groigris that I transported from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim. So Rashi's saying a chiddush here that Rashi is extracting from the Gemara that it's not enough to have taken the shir groigris from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim. It has to be totally severed from any connection to the Rishus HaYochid to generate that chiyuv.
So is your understanding that if, let's say, a bunch of grapes and individual grapes were hanging over the edge, what would your understanding of that be?
I would understand that. I would understand it that it would have the halacha like seeds in a basket.
So you'd be chayiv.
So according to Chizkiah, Avumalei Chayda would be chayiv, because Chizkiah holds agid kli loish me'eged. The fact that they're connected in a basket, or maybe the fact that they're connected through the cluster, that doesn't connect them completely, and each grape will stand for itself, or each seed will stand for itself.
Grapes are different because they're connected on the same vine, whereas seeds are all
right. So that's a David bring up a very good point. It's not a basket that's connecting them; they're connected from their natural growth, but it's still not the same period. So I think David's bringing up a very interesting shaila, because it's sort of nishtahi nishtahar. It might be it might be compared to a basket, and you look at the twigs that hold the grapes together as a basket, or maybe you look at it as one peri. I don't know the answer, but it's definitely a very good thing to bring up, because it's an interesting shaila. It's sort of in between the two categories.
But we let you, when your hand exits the Rishus HaRabim or the Rishus HaYochid into the Rishus HaRabim, we say you're usher. Your hand is still connected to your body.
Are you talking about the first mission in Shabbos?
Yeah, exactly. The very
beautiful kasha. Beautiful kasha. The Gemara is going to get to that. That's a beautiful. Thank you for asking the kasha, because it's so geschmack when we have clarity and we ask from a free the Gemara, so the Gemara's kasha will come to life. That's an excellent point. Excellent point. So at this point, we're still talking about a basket full of mustard, and half of the basket, or even most of the basket, might in fact be over the line in Rishus HaRabim. Some of the basket is not. Do you say that you look at the whole basket as one item and it's not completely severed, and therefore there's no Isser Hitzah? Or do you say each seed is on its own, and those seeds that are on the Rishus HaRabim side have totally severed from Rishus HaYochid and have parked in Rishus HaRabim, and there's a chiyuv?
Yes, can you just clarify for me how the seeds, where they are, that they're in Rishus HaRabim? I mean, they can't defy gravity, so they're not hanging over the edge. So where are they?
Of course,
it's mounted.
They're in a basket. So
but
the
they're inside the basket.
Right, but the basket is half in Rishus HaYochid and half in Rishus HaRabim.
Oh, the basket itself.
Yeah, you put the basket right on the edge. It could even be mostly in Rishus HaRabim and partially in Rishus HaYochid. So do you say the basket makes them all one big unit, and therefore the mustard seed as a whole is not completely severed from Rishus HaYochid and in Rishus HaRabim? Or do you say no, each seed is individual, and whichever seeds are in that basket on the other side on Rishus HaRabim, those already have a chiyuv?
Have we moved away from our Carmelists already, or
yes, the second half of the Mishnah is no longer speaking about a Carmelist. It's now a clear red line that we're not going to cross unless we cross it. If you're Obama,
it's also to some degree going to be totally on the size of the basket, right? Because we said that the basket itself could be a Malkum Patur, no, or a Carmelist. We had that
if it's a certain height,
right?
But here, whenever you're carrying food, you always say that the basket will be bottled to the food that it's carrying, but not bottle enough that it doesn't make it into a unit.
Okay, fair enough.
Not all bottles were created equal.
The guy who doesn't remember what he's doing is using the magical basket.
That's right. Wouldn't you love to meet this character that we've been talking about for the past 3 months? Zok Tehel Gemara. So that's the shita of Chizkiah, who is machmer by saying each seed in the basket, it's on its own, that creates a chumer, because those seeds now that are on the side of the Rishus HaRabim have a malach. But Reb Yosy says l'chula, afilu malei achargel potter, even if it's full of small little seeds, it'll still be potter. So Alma, you see Reb Yosy holds l'chula that agat pli shmei agat, that does unite everything in the basket, and therefore, unless the entire basket has crossed the line, there's no chiyuv for anything in that basket. Omer Reb Zeir, Zok Reb Zeir, Masnizin deloike Chizkiya deka udloike Reb Yochanan deka. Our Mishnah will, which actually, by definition, the way Reb Zeir is describing it, has a stira of mashmoyis in it, because I could be medayik not like Chizkiya, and I can be medayik not like Reb Yochanan. So in fact, I could make contradictory diyukim from this Mishnah. So let's have a look. Chizkiya loy deka. Our Mishnah does not seem to be consistent with Chizkiya. So let's just review in our minds. Chizkiya was machmer. He said the fact that individual items are in a basket does not make them as one item, and therefore, even though part of the basket is over into Rishus Harabim, it will still be mechayiv you for those seeds that have crossed the line. So how is it like that? The Ketani says in our Mishnah, Ad sheyotzi es kol hakupa. So let's look back and see the Mishnah inside so that it should be clear. It says, Kupa shimalei peres v'nosna ala skupa hachitzayna afal pi sheroif peres v'bechutz potter ad sheyotzi es kol hakupa. The entire basket has to cross the line. So let's see what the Gemara is medayik from there. Time with the kol hakupa. The only way you can have Isser is if the entire basket is on the other side. Ha kol peres. But if a complete peri is out, for instance, if I had a basket full of small seeds and some of the peris are completely in Rishus Harabim, that doesn't matter because the Mishnah says beferish. The whole basket must be on the other side. So therefore, hakala peris potter. Alma kasofer. This would indicate that our Mishnah holds agad kli shmei agad. The fact that all these little seeds are in one keli, and the fact that the Mishnah says there won't be a chiv on any of those seeds until all of those seeds, and in fact the entire basket is in Rishus Harabim, that seems to indicate not like Chizkiya, because not like Rabbi Yochanan. I'm sorry, because not like Chizkiya, because Chizkiya says l'chumra. Chizkiya says that if part of the seeds were outside, it would be chayiv. But from our Mishnah, the dik is that if part of the seeds outside, it would be potter. Now, Rabbi Yochanan l'odeka, you have a raya from our Mishnah to the other side. In fact, that there would be a chayiv. The Katani, the Mishnah also says, Afapi sheroiv pears bechutz, even though roiv of the pears are outside, nevertheless, it's still going to be potter. Taima the roiv pears. It seems like the whole reason why the Mishnah wasn't mechayiv, because roiv of each cucumber was in the Rishus Harabim, but part of each cucumber was still in the Rishus Hayochid. Ha kol pears, mashmeth, the entire fruit, like a seed or a nut, had already crossed the line, even though it was still in the basket, avagav DYLive TheAgudah, even though it's still connected through the basket, chayiv, it would be chayiv. Alma kasover agit loishmeagit. So you see, you can medayik from one part of the Mishnah that says if some seeds are in the basket outside the line, it would be chayiv, and from the other part of the Mishnah, you can medayik that it'll be potter. So it's a stira minei ubei in the Mishnah itself. Velakasha Chizkiya. Velakasha, it's shver because it's shver it's shver on Chizkiya from one part of the Mishnah. It's shver on Rabbi Yochanan from the other part of the Mishnah, and it's a steer minei obey in the Mishnah itself. The Gemara Chizkiya matar tamei, Rabbi Yochanan matar tamei. Each one of these two mandamrim will explain the Mishnah where it's not a stira, and they'll each explain the Mishnah where it will support their position. Chizkiya matar tamei. Chizkiya is going to learn like him. Now, what does Chizkiya learn? That if some seeds are in the basket over the line, you would be chayiv. So how is he going to learn achiyotzi es kol hakupa? It says achiyotzi es kol hakupa. What does that mean? So the problem was Chizkiya said you're chayiv even if the whole basket isn't out. If there's seeds in the basket, even though half the basket is still inside, it would be chayiv. So what does it mean achiyotzi es kol hakupa? You're not chayiv until the entire basket is out. Chizkiya learns like this. The kupa milei kishunu deluin. We're talking. When do we say this halacha that you're not chayiv until the whole thing is completely in the Rishus Harabim? That's only if you have long peiros, and it's one long peri that's partially in Rishus Hayochid and partially in Rishus Harabim. Aval malei chardal, but if it was full of chardal, nasa kemisha hoitzi es kol hakupa v'chayiv. So he's sort of amending or explaining, reading into the brayta a little bit of an extra step. That achiyot es kol hakupa means if you have individual seeds, then it would have the same status as if the whole basket was taken out, and it'll be chayiv. So that makes the Mishnah not stiridik, and it makes the Mishnah l'chumra that if there are some seeds that are over the line, you'll be chayiv for them. Rabbi Yochanan, who learned that if there's some seeds over the line, you won't be mechayiv, he has to account for the other part of the brisa. Matasta tamei. What does the Bramisha say? Avol b'shiroiv perish b'chutz. So we were medaik that if all of the peri was b'chutz, it would be chayiv. So how come the seeds that are already on the other side? How come the seeds that are in Rosh Hashanah, why aren't they chayiv? So that was the dik. Avol b'shiroiv perish b'chutz. And so Rabbi Yochanan reads into the Mishnah, v'lo yiroiv perish b'lvad. Not only if roiv pears are outside and meat pears are inside, like a cucumber, not only theirs is a potter, afilo kol pears, even if all of the peri, even if the complete seed is over the line, potter, it's still potter, achiyotzi eskalakupa until the whole basket is taken out. So you can basically kvetch. David Zolti wouldn't like either pshat. He wouldn't like the way Reb Yochanan kvetched it, and he wouldn't like the way Chizkiah kvetched it. But either way, they have a way of understanding it. We had a case where you carried out a tray that belonged to Roichlim that had multiple compartments in it. And again, you put it in the same position where it was partially in Rosh Hashanah, partially in Rosh Hashanah. Even though most of the items are already on the Rosh Hashanah side, it's potter until the entire tray with all of its merchandise is fully under Rosh Hashanah. Because the Havamina here is that we're speaking about ground items, so that each individual kernel for itself is a separate item. And it says you're still potter until everything's out. That Shver on Chizkiah, who held that if it's small items, you look at each item on its own. On the Chizkiah, it's not ground. You're talking about big chunks of things, and therefore it was a case where there's no chunk that's fully in Rishus Harab. Mesev Rav Bibi bar Abaya, Hagoynev Kis b'Shabbos, someone who steals a pouch full of money on Shabbos. So the halach is chayiv, he's going to be chayiv. Why would he be potter? Because there's halach of kamle b'derabbaminei. Whenever you're over the vera of chiyav misa simultaneously with doing something that's going to give you a liability to pay, we say that the chiyav misa nullifies any of your chiyav to pay money. So if you stole the kis b'Shabbos chayiv, why? Because it didn't happen simultaneously. My geneva happened the moment I pulled it out of the rishus, the moment I lifted it up. The moment I lift something up, even though it's in the rishus of the ganev, once I lift it up, I made a kinyan on it, and I'm chayiv for geneva. But I'm not chayiv for the Isser Shabbos until I walk out with it into the rishus harabim and put it down. So since the Isser geneva did not come at the same time as the Chilul Shabbos, they're two independent actions, and they each trigger their own chiyuv. The geneva triggers a chiyuv tashlumin, and later on, crossing over into Rosh Hashanah and putting it down triggers a chiyuv Shabbos. What about how you megar v'yotzei? What if I never made a kinyan in the rishus of the nigzal because I just dragged it out? So when am I koinit? I'm koinit when I drag it out of his rishus. So there, my chiyuv Shabbos and my chiyuv geneva happened simultaneously. Then potter. Shari Isser Geneva, Isser Shabbos Bam Kechot. Frank the Gemara, V'Yisol Gedaitach Agid Kli Shmei Agid. If you hold that everything in a keli is considered one big keli, then Kadam Lo Isser Geneva Lo Isser Shabbos. The Isser Geneva is going to happen before Isser Shabbos, because even though part of it is outside, whatever's outside, you're kinda for Geneva, but the Isser Shabbos, we said, does not occur until the whole thing is completely removed from the Rishus Harab. Zok Timor, you're right. If you dragged out this bucket, this bag of money from the opening, you're right, because since the opening is already crossed the threshold into Rishus Harabim, I'm going to be mechuyev for Geneva right away because I can access the money from the opening that's already on the outside and pull it out. But for Chiyav Shabbos, until the bag is completely out, there would be no Chiyav. So you're right. But however, this Ganev didn't pull it from the opening, he pulled it from the bottom. So therefore, until the entire thing is completely removed from the Rishus of the Nigzal, there would be no Chiyav Geneva, and there would be no Chiyav Shabbos, and they're coming at the same time. So let's stop over here. Have a wonderful Shabbos. When are we learning Motzei Shabbos? Same thing, 10:45? Does that work?
I usually try to do it myself on Shabbos, but it's up to the chevra.
Okay,
It's usually 1045 channel B,
1045 channel B.
1948.
Okay, Shechazar to B.
Okay, to be.
Yes, you go. Sorry, just going back to the basket. If according to Rabbi Yochanan, if all this, let's say all the seeds in the basket are in the other rishos, but part of the basket is still inside the Rosh Yachid. So you're saying the whole basket itself has to be out, or
Yes,
if, like everything?
According
So
to Rabbi Yochanan, the
Yeah.
entire basket has to be in the
So
Rosh
even if all the
Hashanah.
contents of the basket are in the other rishos, but part of the basket itself is still.
That's right,
in
because
the
if it's
Rosh Yachid?
Kli
Okay.
we look at everything in the Keli as one big entity.
So you're looking at the whole keli. Okay.
Right,